Hey everybody, in this video I'm going to talk about a video that I just posted of me playing a few warm-up choruses over How Insensitive. Got a lot of feedback from it, and very positive feedback, which I'm grateful for. But people have asked me to break down kind of how I approach the tune, what I think about harmonically, and I'm going to do that, but I'm going to do it in steps. So this is the first part, which is going to address the first 4 chords of the tune, which would be the first 8 measures. Now, one of the things to remember in Jobim's tunes is that it's mandated that you must play each chord as an individual sound palette, meaning that, yes, of course, there are certain things that would work in cadences and key centers, but he doesn't usually follow that to the rule, meaning that he deviates from that a lot. Things will appear to be something, but they're not quite that. So check it out. All right, so let's take a look at this. I said in the introduction that, Jobim's tunes mandate that you really play each chord as its own harmonic palette and not think of key centers. Although there are connections that could be related to what we think is standard key centers and standard cadences like a 2-5-1 and things like that, he does do a lot of twists. And there is an interesting thing happening with the way the bass moves chromatically down, but the harmony is actually moving in different directions, and let me show you that. I'm going to take the first 4 chords in this video. So if we take the first chord, D minor, any kind of D minor 9, D minor 7, D minor 11 is also nice because it's got the G on top, and that's what my line is doing. It's outlining that. I'm playing this C major sound, and there's a C major in that 11 chord. So I've got something like this. If you just reduce this to a key center and say that I have to play this particular sound, I can't play, let's say, the major 6, which would entail having that B on top. You can do that, and of course that would sound like this. And when you go to the next chord, which is really an A7 over C sharp, of course it says C sharp diminished 7, which is a dominant 7. I look at it as A7, so you could play, what I do here is I do this arpeggio that's in my book, Getting Your Improvising into Shape. It's a pretty tricky one, so I'm starting off here. And this is just basically breaking up the chord sounds. Now, if I play this voicing, it's an open sounding chord for an A7. Flat 9 in there. I have the root on top. Double down here with it on the bottom. And here's the flat 9. And there's the open G, which gives you the flat 7, but I arpeggiate it this way. It's a major 7. I'm using that open D string. Now, open G. Now I play an augmented. And that outlines that chord, even if I play it this way, or I play it this way, 13 flat 9 this way, they all have that timbre of a dominant. Now the next chord, which is some kind of C minor 9, C minor 6, if you look at that chord, although the bass is moving down chromatically, I look at it this way. I think of it as being D minor, A7, going to F7. And then the 4th chord of the series is what we would call either a B half diminished or a G7 over B, or this. And so that moves up a whole step. And you can hear that motion. If you listen to the melody on top, that A, you've got the D minor, the A7, if I played A7. Now here's F7, and then of course it moves up a whole step to G7. I can play the G's like that. So you can hear that's a very simple way to look at the harmony. I'm just playing D minor 7, or even just D minor, A7, F7, to G7. And the bass doing this, but you want to see that the motion of his tune is that you've got these two counterpoints happening at the same time. The harmony is moving like this, going to this, moving up, where the bass is moving down chromatically. And the melody is doing its thing. Good thing to do is, and I would suggest this as an exercise, just take a D minor triad. You can take it down here. And then play for A7. You can play a C sharp diminished. Now for your next chord, C minor 6 or C minor 7 or F7, how you want to look at it, you play a A diminished, go up a whole step to B diminished. And you can hear the harmony really, really clearly. So if you've got this voicing, now, there are many places to play this. I could go through here and play the A as a triad as opposed to just the C sharp diminished, and I would play just this. D minor, A, then I could play F to G. And you hear the harmony really, really clearly when you do that. So if you start with those kinds of things, it'll help you to develop the ideas like I have in the solo that I played. Then I went to this for the F7 or C minor 6. Now let me explain that. It's the same kind of line as the thing for the A7. And there's the E flat, the flat 7. So you can hear the difference between this and there's G7. So for my first 4 chords, I have this happening essentially. And that's pretty much what I'm looking at. I'm trying to mimic that motion of what's happening harmonically, always keeping the melody in mind. But that's how I approach this tune, and I have played this tune now for almost 40 years, probably over 40 years, and I'm still scratching the surface. So there's much to be learned about these, and Joe Beam's tunes are very, very tricky, but this is how I am approaching what you saw on my warm-up video that I played those 2 choruses, and I will do the next video talking about the next set of chords and essentially the ideas that I'm using and ways that you can apply the things that I do or that I've done to find an easier way to approach the harmony in order to find the chord tones, because those tunes that he wrote are unforgiving.